I am Jim Collison and live from the Gallup campus here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on March 22nd, 2019. This BP10 edition of Called to Coach is a resource for Gallup-trained BP10 coaches and educators who want to help others identify and develop their builder talents. We have Gallup experts and independent BP10 coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help others maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this live webcast, you can put them in our chat room. It's available for you. It's on the YouTube channel. There's a chat box. You can see it. 3 little buttons to pop it out if you want, but put your questions there. We will be answering those live during the program. If you have questions afterwards or you're listening to the recorded version, just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. We'll get right back to you on that. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com for all your CliftonStrengths coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video on both downloadable audio. We call that podcasting. It's available for you offline. If you're not listening to podcasts, recapturing that time on a train, in a plane, in a car, those kinds of things, you really are missing out. We have those available for you if you want to do it that way. All the instructions on how to do it are on our coaches blog. Go to coaching.gallup.com. Todd Johnson is our host today. Todd is Gallup's channel leader for Builder Profile 10 and job creation here at Gallup. And Todd, always great to see you. Welcome back to another Call to Coach.
I know. We just had a great one with Dominique up in Montreal just a couple of weeks ago. And if you have an interest in the CIR reporting, the Coach's Insight Report, that's a really must-watch. Dominique's a tremendous practitioner. And boy, I'm excited about this one. First, bit of an editorial, but I just want to say thank you to the BP10 community for all the good wishes on our flooding. I mean, bless. We got notes from around the world. It's unfortunate to make global news for loss of livestock and roads and farms, but we did. And the water's going down. I'm looking at the Missouri now. We crested at 34 feet. We were at 36 during the flood of 2011, so we weren't quite as high. But it's definitely going down, and families are being reunited. But thanks for all the wishes. I mean, it was really kind of special that literally I heard from all continents but Antarctica in terms of flood wishes. Appreciated. I'm excited about today. I'm excited about all these, but especially today. I thought it was a little unusual. Our guest laid down the gauntlet during our pre-show that this would be the highest evaluated, most attended, which was a bold move because we've had some, we did the inventor of the internet the other month. We've had some pretty tough acts to follow, but Mr. Claussen laid down the gauntlet. So I want to make sure that was in the recorded version of this show. I maybe I say this more than I should, but I really mean this. This is not just a colleague. This is a great friend, a friend to me personally, to my family. He's helped my sons with their careers over the years. He's, if you don't know him as Mr. Rich Claussen, you'll know him as Mr. Lincoln, because he cares about Lincoln, Nebraska and its future as much as anybody you'd ever meet. I will travel around the Midwest, maybe the country. And if people claim to know Lincoln or anything about Lincoln and they don't know Rich Claussen, I get up and walk away. The conversation's over. They're frauds. They're not real, because this man that's going to join us is the, many of you read Jim Clifton talk about city fathers and mothers. Well, this is a city father of Lincoln, Nebraska. And Rich, I could give your whole bio, but I think you could probably do it better. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to go right into the topic at hand, which is the identification and development of builders. We'll call it the Future Builder Challenge. That is the topic of the day. We're going to depose you. You're absolutely one of the best at taking a concept and making it real and ultimately transforming the lives of, in this case, kids, but of future generations. So, Rich, I know your history, but share with the audience a little bit about who you are and how you ended up with those headphones on this sunny afternoon.
Well, Todd, first of all, thank you. And really, this is terrific that I get to do this. I'm a podcast virgin, so this is a maiden voyage for me. I want to state up front that my appreciation for my friendship with you and your family, and And I really appreciate your restraint in the use of hyperbole in terms of describing who I am and what I do. But I appreciate it. I think, if you boil it down, I think at my core, I believe all those things. I'm not sure I have the recognition and the cachet to the level that you described, but thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm originally from Greater Nebraska. Back in the day, I was actually born in Houston, Texas. My father was, I'm not going to give you my entire life story. Yeah. This is why it's going to be the most watched, right? So you get to walk through this. But I went to the University of Nebraska after growing up in North Platte and studied broadcast journalism and telecommunications. It was real interesting. I mean, my collegiate career was also as a manager for the University of Nebraska football team, which now is becoming resurgent, and we hope to get back on a national stage. But I took a great interest in Lincoln along with my wife of 36 years, that we decided that we didn't want to just take up space and just live somewhere. We wanted to invest in the city. And so whether that's philanthropically or in service with your treasure, your time, all of those things, we're both very dedicated to that. I had a 30-year career with a global branding and marketing firm, Bailey Lauerman. I exited there after 30 years of helping grow brands and building bottom line of companies, including our own. But then at age 57, I found that the things that were very inspiring to me when I got started 30 years prior were not anymore. So things like money, made that. Career advancement, I was a partner, so I owned a good part of the company. That box had been checked off. And then recognition and awards, didn't need any more of that. And so I decided to really kind of position myself in terms of what can I do to help build top line community versus bottom line of company. And so I was really, and I probably didn't even know it at the time, but with my engagement with you, Todd, and the Gallup organization and the builder profile and strengths, I was acting on things that were very intuitive and instinctive, and frankly, were very much in my DNA. If you'd look at the builder profile, I was probably executing against what you could predict would happen for somebody like myself. So I took a job so I exited, sold back my interest in the company to my partners, took a job with an organization called Prosper Lincoln, which was based on research that uncovered 3 areas of need within the city. One was early childhood development. And as you all know, especially within the Gallup organization, if you don't make a positive impression and impact on a child between birth and 5 years of age, that's pretty much how they're hardwired. 90% of them is hardwired within those first years. And then everything after that, you're either trying to correct or play catch up, and it becomes very expensive to change somebody's, their personality. And so that's one area. Job, workforce development, and job skills was another area. But the area that I took on was innovation and entrepreneurship. And so how we got involved here is that Jim Krieger, the chief financial officer for Gallup, he and his wife Penny have been good friends of mine and my wife's for a number of years. He said, you need to meet Todd Johnson from our organization, because Jim was one of the first people that I reached out to when I took this position. And he said, we have something that we're doing, in Mexico City, and we're starting to do it a little bit in Omaha. But he said, I think you'd really like to learn about this. And so I was learning about BP10. I'd not heard about BP10, which was fascinating to me. And one of the objectives of this Prosper Lincoln work is to connect the next generation to what opportunities look like within the city of Lincoln, whether it's to make a business or to start a career, start a family, basically have a better life. And I saw BP10, and I saw the immense just possibilities of building out what, especially with a young generation, kids in high school, is what we decided to focus on. to be able to build a pipeline for future contributors to our community, not just in work, but in other things as well.
Sports.
Yeah, or sports, exactly.
Future Huskers.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have complete departments and armies of people that help recruit those all around the country. But anyway, so it was really, I was very intrigued by it. And so I know in terms of what you all were doing in Mexico City, huge numbers, tens of thousands of kids every year taking this. And then, finding out who are the dozen or so that are really high propensity to be builders. And then Omaha, I saw Omaha take off and doing around 1,000 kids taking the assessment. And then, a dozen of them graduating and spending a month-long internship and immersion at Gallup University and the Gallup campus. And I thought, we need to do this in Lincoln. Yeah. And so we did. And that's probably what we'll talk about now even more.
It's absolutely what we're here for. And I still remember our very first meeting down in the atrium. And there have been many meetings across the state since then. But I was enamored with your mission and passion. You've heard me say it before. And we need every community for this to work, needs somebody who cares about that community. It can't be some Gallup fly in, or even you can fly in and make a little impact. But ultimately, for these initiatives to truly work and be transformational, and it could well be we have those people on our call today, or they know, or have a backyard neighbor or a friend or a colleague at the chamber, at the university, at the, wherever. Someone's got to own this system. What kind of attracted you to, I guess we've had a couple names, but now we're calling it the Future Builder Challenge. But what sparked your interest after those very early conversations?
Well, what was most intriguing to me was, you think back, and I'll use Nebraska as an example. So we have examples of people that have been entrepreneurial, that have started something, that have built something from the ground up. And when you think about it, even legacy businesses, some of the oldest businesses in our state just turned 150 years old. Mm-hmm. So by global standards, we're not very old. No. But when something started in Nebraska, and if you've ever been to Nebraska, you realize that we're right in the middle. We're in the heart of the country. And you quickly realize, especially if you traverse the entire state, that we don't have mountains, we don't have oceans, we don't have a lot of things. We don't have a tropical climate. We do have floods.
We've got a lot of lakes.
Yeah, we have a lot of lakes, a lot of rivers. But if you stopped in Nebraska as a pioneer, you did so intentionally. You did so because either weather or famine or something made you stop here. Chances are you were on your way to the Rocky Mountains or to the West Coast, this new area called California, and the gold rush or what have you, and you just didn't. You made it you were determined. I'm going to make a life here. So what we have in Nebraska, and what really got me excited about this, is that I believe in the DNA of our people, that we have this no fear of failure in our heart. All of our businesses were started by entrepreneurs. They had to start somewhere. Yeah. So at some point, if BP10 were to exist back in the 1800s, you would have found that these people that are starting businesses had drive, they had grit, they were conductors, they were initiators, they were people that got stuff done. And so I've always believed that we were in a good position for people to embrace that kind of mindset. And what I really, really enjoyed was thinking, so how do we become more intentional?
Yeah, intentional. I love that word.
Yeah. And so how do we, if we don't leave it to chance? So Todd, you're, I think famous in many of the conversations that we've had of reminding us that, a young man named Evan Williams who grew up in greater Nebraska, came to the University of Nebraska, attended for like one semester, got bored, and said, yeah, I like college, but I'm going to go out and I want to build something and start something. So he goes out to, the Bay Area and co-founds Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter doesn't exist if Evan doesn't go out and do that. But if you rewind the tape, and if we think, gosh, if we'd have had a Future Builders initiative back then, might we have not only identified what Evan wanted to build and do, but if Evan then identified and saw that there were people in the community that were willing to help him build that with no expectation of anything in return.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to create. So that was kind of the impetus.
So go tactical. And I've told this maybe on previous calls or certainly phone calls with people. The easiest part of this initiative is recruiting the mentors, the business leaders, the existing companies to get involved. I mean, I've done it in Omaha, you've done it in Lincoln, a couple other cities. If you position it correctly, it's a rhetorical question because the kind of people that are in our communities, and I believe this to be true, cities across the country, having that existing successful generation, if you will, engage with the next generation. The only reason anybody said no in terms of coaching or mentoring or judging the competition, et cetera, is if they're out of town. I mean, I had one person pull up because they had the flu and didn't want everybody else to get sick. Fine. If you have the flu, stay away. Otherwise, I mean, the engagement and the collaboration, talk maybe a little tactically. Some folks on the call know, but we're on our second year. What are we talking about? What did you do? What did year one look like, and how'd you learn and adapt it into year two?
Well, in year one, so when we started this, I mean, this was just an idea.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, what we built had parts of what Omaha did, but it was in many ways very different than Omaha. It had some of the aspirational goals of a Mexico City effort, but we had to scale it right to Lincoln. Yeah. So the very first step was you have to put together conceptually what this thing looks like. And so I built, and this is kind of hearkening back to my advertising and marketing days. I thought, all right, here's what we want to achieve. Here's the problem that we're trying to solve. And so you have to start with what's the reality of now, regardless of where you live. If you're over in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or if you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, what is the problem that you want to address? And so the problem for us is, if you can state that, what the reality of now is in the present time, what we're trying to solve and what our biggest challenge was we are losing people. Okay. So Nebraska has a lot of things. We have more cattle than we have people. We have more land than we have cities and people. We have like 93,000 square miles of land. Yeah. So we have a lot of land, but we don't have a density of people. So one of the challenges we have in order to grow as a community, not just physically, but also to grow mentally and I think emotionally, is that we need to keep those that we believe can help build here, but also attract others. And so it's really super important for us to build workforce. Workforce is a huge problem around the country. And so what I did is I began to build this presentation with that as a statement of fact. Everybody can agree on that. That's something that we all need to start working to address. Well, guess what? We have not been addressing it using what I call purposeful disruption. And so we needed to upset the norm of how we're going about trying to solve this. BP10, builder profile, and the builder mentality was exactly the thing that we needed to disrupt. And so then you look at, well, so what is this? So you have to describe what we mean by a builder profile, what we mean by a builder mentality, and then how do we connect, uncovering that, and then very intentionally connecting those young people, in our case, And young people, it can be older people as well that can start things. In fact, if you look at the average age of a startup, most people think it's T-shirts and hoodies and flip-flops. It's people in their 30s and 40s, and even 50s. So there's a stereotype there that we tried to reverse a little bit as well. But so I built that, and I said, all right, so what if? So you have to put kind of a moonshot out there for people to react to. And we say, what if we were to do the builder profile for every single ninth grader in the city? And then we backfilled that with a number of sophomores, juniors, and seniors as well. They see the big picture, and then we narrow it down, and you begin to, frame this and saying, then we're going to invite the top 20% to programs and rallies and what have you. And then we're going to have experiences that these kids will, have and keep and cherish for a lifetime at a very impressionable age. Then you go out and you pitch this. You literally, you put on your sales shoes and you pitch it. But you pitch it to people in really two ways. One is we needed to do a fundraising effort that eventually was around $130,000 for our city in order to offer this to 4,500 kids to take the assessment, 3,200 of which finished it and completed it. The others that didn't were either sick that day from school or they just chose not to do it, which is fine. And then you work it on down. So you get, and this goes back to what you said earlier, Todd, with regards to you need to build advocacy within the community. So the community needs to own it, and then you need a champion for that effort that can coordinate it all. I was that guy.
Yeah, you were.
And then to recruit and to bring people into the fold to get involved, what you were hinting at, and I'm eventually now getting to, is that we recruited people to say, look, all we want the most valuable thing you have, and that is your time and your expertise to help guide these kids through a pathway that's going to help them learn how to solve a problem, work as a team, present that solution, and then they could possibly win cash prizes, which, we can get into that whole staging of what that looked like. But to a person, no one said no. And to your point, the only people that said, gosh, I wish I could, but I'm going to be in Atlanta, or I'm going to be, I've got my, this or this, my schedule doesn't allow it. We targeted people that were a little bit closer in age, for the most part, to the high school students. So we targeted people in their 20s, early 30s, initially, so that when they walk in the room and they see these mentors and coaches, it's not guys of our generation, Todd, that are looking at them, telling them what they need to do. It's somebody that looks a little bit more like them, a little closer. And so that was really important. And to a person, and these were not like the second and third tier employees of organizations. Many of these were founders of businesses. These were people who started the business themselves. And they said, oh gosh, this is great. You bet. I'll give you a half a day. I'll give you a full day.
I still remember this.
It was awesome.
I think it was funny. We had a pretty serious problem with the business owners recruiting the freshmen in high school. It's like, you gotta check with their parents, man. I mean, I know we're being recorded, so I don't get in trouble with the authorities, but there are rules about recruiting minors to businesses. One nuance, because we might have scared people with that big budget, that also included a month-long internship at the university. 100 plus, which was maybe half the budget. So that I think, is it fair to say we learned a month long is a long time. We did it in Omaha. We did a month. In Mexico City, we fly him to DC, and I can't stress enough, and you said it really well a couple times, the specific model will absolutely be different based on what that community, where they are, what they need, their appetite. These could be small, these could be large. This year, we're going to do a week long. So,
and I think that's what it should be. So what we heard, the good thing is that we did a debrief after we did everything, and then when we finished patting ourselves on the back for all the great work that we did, a lot of people doing great work and heavy lifting, we said, all right, how do we make this better? And so we looked And there were a number of students that said, gosh, I just can't commit to a month. I've got elite volleyball camp. I've got basketball all-star game. I've got band camp. I've got to start working. A lot of these kids, they want summer jobs. And so we went back and I challenged, in a good way, the CliftonStrengths Institute team. And I said to Sam, Samantha Kennelly and Taylor Lofdahl, I said, can we create this, condense it down, and create an experience that is as good, if not better, than what we did over a month, and do it for a week? And they said, absolutely. And they said, in fact, it's really going to be better because, you think about students, and you and I both have sons who are in either in college or out of college. And, the attention span of somebody that is 15, 16, 17 years old over a month. I mean, what a challenge. I mean, I couldn't at that age keep our kids focused at the dinner table.
Yeah. Well, I put Collison in that category right now. He's well advanced.
He's
keeping him on these calls for an hour is
right. We need to wake him up. Yeah. But yeah, so the important thing to remember here is don't be scared by the 130, or if you're in Atlanta and you say, well, geez, we could scale this thing to $250,000, fine. But if you're in Broken Bow, Nebraska, for example, population 3,000-4,000 people, you could do this very, very efficiently. The costs are this. For this program that we built out, you buy the codes. So we purchase the codes, the BP10 assessment codes. Then you hold events, and the events could be as innovative and glorious as you want to make them, or they can be very, put your hand in the dirt and get after it, bare bones. And with those events, if you have facility costs, that's one thing. We happen to do that at Nebraska Innovation Campus. If you have food and beverage costs, which we feed the kids lunch and dinner, and we have a catering, process that we go through, that's another cost. But you can hold this in a high school gym. You could hold this in a civic center. You can hold this wherever you can find space. You can recruit and ask companies within the community to come in and say, would you provide lunch? And so you go and you get 150 Subway sandwiches, or you get pizza from, the local pizza place, and then you switch it up. Or, you could get really creative and say, I want to recruit the teachers from the schools, and I want them to come in and cook. So you do a kind of a potluck thing. That you could do that too. The only other cost then is we decided that we wanted to incent these kids with cash prizes. And so we had $500, $1,000, $1,500, and then a grand prize of $5,000. We had a local company that underwrote all of that. And they said, we'd love to do that. And not only that, we're not only willing to give them the big check where they can have their picture taken in front of it for the winning teams, but we want to dedicate some of our people within our organization to help these kids build out these ideas, to give them ongoing mentorship and coaching. And so, you can get all of that donated. You don't have to have cash prizes. The real prize is these kids getting recognition for creating solutions within our pitch competition anyway, for problems that are plaguing our city, Lincoln, that adults haven't been able to
I love
solve.
that. I heard you say that at the Inspiration Rally, and it struck me because, we're putting the next generation. I remember you and I were worried a little bit about freshmen that first year. And one of our educators friends said, are you kidding? We haven't bludgeoned all the creativity out of them by freshman year.
Exactly.
And we have some wild, interesting ideas. I will say, and I don't know if it fits here, but it's such an important point. One of my favorite parts, and again, we've done this now in a couple cities, a couple countries, is the day or two after the different events, be it Inspiration Rally, be it the boot camp, and some of the emails these parents send around, you can almost tell they're crying while they're typing because, Johnny doesn't get recognized because he's not a star athlete, and our systems kind of only identify and celebrate the athletes, and in some cases the intellects, or maybe those kids that can spell really big words that have no correlation to economic development, but we have a contest and a recognition for the spellers. And no offense, sorry, spelling bee friends, but we've tapped into and as parents, and lots of parents on the call, when you can celebrate a kid for something that hasn't been fleshed out and recognized, there's no better feeling. And
Yeah.
I think we pretty quickly, a lot of the schools are like, do not walk in the door and say, I have another test to give the kids. You'll be thrown out. Security will take you right out the same door.
Right.
You don't position it that way. I dare even say assessment. That's just a piece of this pie, but an opportunity to light up and engage some kids that our system just doesn't. I mean, let's be clear. And we all have tons of really good educator friends who are doing an incredible job with a lot of headwind, but this is a different, celebration, recognition of something that could be the first time. And I still remember when we were messing around with the assessments, and we called it creative thinking. And isn't that a lovey-dovey, kumbaya label? And we're like, what are we really talking about? We're talking about disruptors. We're talking about people that can see things others can't. They want to shake up the status quo, that want to.
Right.
And so we hung our hat. And of course, disruptors and traditional, education structures aren't necessarily coveted. We covet them. And that doesn't mean you disrupt the class. It means, obviously a more sophisticated definition of disruption, but it is fun to get those emails that work their way, to the school, from the school out to the team. This could be more tactical, but I think it's really important to have a strong partner in each of the schools.
Right.
What I've learned, at least, and you'll probably validate, a kid's not going to sit down and take the assessment unless someone tells them, period.
Yeah.
And by the way, that goes for CliftonStrengths and the 21 million completes we have there. Very rarely does someone wake up and say, I'm going to spend $20 in a half an hour and learn about my recurring patterns of thought and behavior that can be productively applied. People don't do that. Someone tells them to, a colleague, a relative, a spouse, a manager. Same, so goes CliftonStrengths, so goes BP10. There's got to be somebody in the school that encourages. I know in some cases you did that. Didn't you stand in front of some students and say, oh yeah, you're missing a big opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, I went into 2 or 3 high schools and said, you've not signed up for this, yet you've been identified as being one of the top 20% in the entire city to have a high propensity to build something.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do this? There's no money. It's your time, and people are willing to invest in you realizing your dreams. And, it's pretty, once you can look somebody in the eye, and then I would not leave until I helped them sign up right then and there.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. I want to go back to something that you brought up in terms of, how you work with schools, and, hopefully we have some school people on the podcast listening in. I think it's really important to connect at the absolute highest level of a school district. And so we knew in Lincoln that, and we offered this, by the way, it was public, private, parochial. We had a couple homeschool kids that took part as well. We wanted to create this opportunity for everybody. And so it was really important for us to make sure that we had the 600-pound gorilla, in our city that had, the lion's share, 45,000 students under their care, Lincoln Public Schools. And so I remember having the conversation with Dr. Steve Joel, and Steve, and part of this was my maybe inability, because it was at the very, very beginning of being able to accurately describe what it was that we wanted to try and do. I'm sure in Steve's mind, he was thinking, great, another assessment. We have so many assessments. What do you ask? He said, Rich, we only get so many hours a day, to spend with these kids. And so, but once Steve and I, and Steve helped me think this through, a little bit more, he said, this is great. I want to have you talk to our leadership team. And so that's when you came into the picture, Todd. And I remember you and a couple of data scientists from Gallup came down. Thank you. And we really talked this through. We've done the same thing now, you and I have, with other cities in the state of Nebraska. But each time we start with the superintendent. And then once the superintendent sees that this is a differentiator for their kids, and this can help the school system look really, really good to the community. Yeah. Because many of these schools, and I got to thinking about this, thinking about marketing, they're going to have bond issues that will come before the electorate. And they need to, and so when you're at the ballot box and you're thinking, gosh, what has Grand Island Public Schools done lately for the city of Grand Island and for our future beyond the great things that they're doing in the classroom? Well, this is creating something new to talk about and something new to get behind. And they can be seen, especially because it's in its infancy, they can be seen as a trailblazer. Yeah, we're one of the first school systems in the country to do this. Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. So whether it's it's Grand Island, it's Hastings, it's whoever, we're getting people in these communities, beginning with the superintendent, because you have to have the schools and the educators on board, but then they quickly see the potential of this. Yeah. They recruit the mayor. They recruit the head of the Chamber of Commerce. They recruit the head of economic development. They get other community fathers and mothers that are leaders in the community, men and women, just a cross section of people who can then own this. Because I don't think the school system can or should have to own it. They got too much other stuff.
And But I'm reflecting and thinking about the different meetings and conversations over the years. And I've yet to run into a great educator who doesn't see this as helping prepare their population for the future and the future of work and just the regulatory environment and all the different assessments and time. Yeah, time was a much bigger issue. I do think in the future, I've got a little futurism in my Clifton. I heard of this thing, CliftonStrengths, the other day, and I took it, and it was really interesting. I had future in there. I think probably parents of those that will probably, the same way they've been doing with baseball and band and debate and all the other programs, you start getting down to $20, $30 for a code and a lunch. It becomes nominal at best. I used to spend hundreds of dollars on lacrosse cleats, that would last 3 games, and then you'd have to get another pair. There'll always be a subsidized, component, I think, and there should be. Yeah. Obviously, our science doesn't discriminate to zip code, and we find the talent in all nooks and crannies of a given community. So helpful, so interesting. Any surprises? You've been on a 2-year journey, preparing it for its 3rd year. Any surprises? Maybe what was hardest that you didn't think would be hard? That's a really good question. So a couple things. One is you get so excited by the potential of this that you can miss the opportunity to truly think it through to the end. So I always believe that the most successful initiatives are those that, number one, have a passionate champion behind them that can help drive it for all the right reasons and identifying all of that. But you also need to define, what does success look like? Wow. So what's it look like in a year? What's it look like in 2 years, in 5 years? What's it look like in 10 years? Because this is a long-term play. Yeah, this is a long-term play. I mean, this is, these are people that, some of these young people will enter the workforce next year. Yeah. Some are going to go to college, and depending on where they are, where we're touching them in high school, where we're connecting with them in high school, some are freshmen, and they may want to go to college. That's an 8 to 10 year play. Some may go to a community college. Some may not go to college at all. And they just want to get into the trades. That's fine. So I wish I would have thought about how do we track that? Yeah. How do we stay in touch with Ashley, who was a standout last year? How do we track Ashley's progress? Is she getting the inspiration that she needs? Is she getting the support that she needs to build? Yeah. And not everybody that goes through this is going to want to build a business. No. They're going to want to join an organization. They want the security. They want, whatever. But they're not all going to be entrepreneurs, but they're going to be entrepreneurial wherever they are. And I think that's a big distinction. And so how do we not necessarily monitor, but how do we continue to engage and support for those that are wanting that? So that's one thing.
that I wish I would have thought through. And we're continuing to build that out. The other thing is answering the question of what's next. No. So if this is kind of a sidebar to what I just said, but kids are really famous for asking, wow, that was great. That was awesome. What's next?
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
What do I do now? And we didn't have that answer. And and when I say we, I'll take responsibility for this. I thought more short-term than long-term. My goal was not just do the assessment, but have programming and engagement that help them build out and get better clarity on what they're capable of. Yeah. But after the 3 months, so what's next? What happens in July? Yeah. What about when I come back to school in August or September? What about in November? What does that look like? And I'm only going to take this once, so we're not going to do the assessment for every kid every year. How do I build out the rest of my high school, time or college time? And so we're working on that. The last thing is, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, is I'm not convinced that philanthropy can support all of this for all time. I don't think that's sustainable. So I do think that, and I was encouraged by one of our fiduciary partners early on with a foundation to think about, what does this look like, pay to play model? And I said, I get that. Not going to go there yet because we don't have anything to sell. Yeah. So, you're able to sell, I want to go out for football if you have a good football team. Yeah. I want to go out for show choir because it's really cool. It's got a vibe within the school, and I've heard people have a lot of fun. I like to sing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This is a totally new concept. Yeah. This is different than junior achievement. This is different than DECA. It's different than Future Business Leaders of America. It's different than all of those clubs. This is something that really grabs and gets into the soul of the student and creates this unbelievable perspective of, wow, what opportunities are out there for me. Yeah. And so I think we had to have it at a minimum 2 years to be able to have some momentum and some vibe out there so that people would talk about it. Then we can move to a pay to play. I agree with you, though, that philanthropy will have a part in this. So as you know better than anybody, I mean, these kids that take this assessment and participate in this initiative, this Future Builders Challenge, they come from every socioeconomic range on the spectrum. We have kids in this that are worried about where their next meal is going to come from. Yeah. And we have kids that have no worries in the world. We have kids that are 2.0 students, and we have kids that are 4.0 students. We have kids that are athletes, kids that are tech nerds. And they would tell you they're tech nerds, and they're proud of it. Mm-hmm. We have kids of all ethnicities. We have immigrant students. It's just the whole range. Kids, and I love yours, kids that spend as much time in detention as they do in advanced placement classes.
Amen. And those something, way too tactical. But another thing I love about these events, and I'll be at the one in Lincoln a week from Saturday, is the celebration. And we force these teams to be diverse in every definition, starting with talent. Right. And boy, the sooner you can understand the power of diversity, diverse thinking, kids don't gravitate that way, not in our current culture or system. You go to the shopping mall and they got their phone in the same pocket and they're dressed the same and they're just, all lined up. And then some of them go out and start companies with people just like them. And that's a bust. So I love when we force the rainmakers with the experts, the conductors and the talent, and you can't have all of them from some school and gender and age. And I think, gosh, if we just move the needle on the power of diversity, did I say hell? You can edit that out, Jim. The power of diversity in building this country's economy, building every company that operates in our economy. I mean, if you need a brochure course on diversity, I've got a long speech I could give you. But teaching that at a young age is awesome and cool. And
it's a concept that I like to call intentional collisions.
Nice.
So we have because that's what the world is. The world doesn't allow you to stay in a safe space. You got to get out and get dirty, and you have to engage. And that's what we want. And I think that's what these kids want. They don't want to be
need a nudge, though.
They need a nudge, and we're providing that nudge.
It's fun to watch them get dragged in on Saturday because a parent or somebody made them go.
Right.
And what in the hell? I got to meet people I don't know. I got to what? I'm a builder. I mean, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And then literally having to drag them out Monday after a very long day because they were trying to win and they were pitching and they were getting pictures with big shots and stuff. And boy, does transformation happen. But to your really great point, and let's just say, and we're amongst friends amongst these coaches, we haven't figured it out yet, but we've got to get a club, a cohort. Don Nizzi's doing some great stuff in Omaha around a website, around some technology.
Right.
We've got to get them, think about what a sorority or fraternity does in terms of lifelong membership.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure that out on these builders. There could be a day where there's an eHarmony and, two experts need a rainmaker and we have a platform, or I'm going to be with the governor on Tuesday morning asking if he'll open the mansion every December to invite the winning teams and their parents. And that won't be a big deal for some, but it could be for others. Every different, I think in Omaha, they talked about quarterly meetups, maybe technology driven around the exercises in the book. There's 2 years worth of exercises right there. And, do the self scheme again and the board of directors. And those are all things that are applicable, even if you're not starting a company. So got a lot of neat ideas.
Yeah.
We got to figure that out.
Well, and I would include in I would include the kids. So I think the best student engagement is when it comes from the bottom up, not the top down. Yeah. So it's, these kids don't want to have their moms. I mean, they had to be nudged and they had to be, your moms and dads are no, you're going to go to this, otherwise you're going to be playing video games or you're going to be going to the mall or wherever. No, you're going to go to this. And so, there's some kind of formula here where we need to engage those that truly are the greatest of the, great in terms of potential builders, and get them in a room and say, look, here's where this can go moving forward. Number one, this is going to be up to you. You need to take the initiative and start whatever it is that you want to start to continue this engagement. But here's what you need to know. You need to know that you have the support of the community.
Yeah.
You have, and what does that mean? That's kind of one of those throwaway phrases. Well, so what we define that as here in Lincoln is we have businesses that are willing and able to welcome these kids into their businesses, not just for job shadowing, but to really dig down into the weeds and saying, what does computer science and computer engineering look like in these 3 or 4 different businesses? What does it look like for retail? What does it look like as a trade? We have people that are willing in the community, and that's why it's really important up front to get these people all in. So it's not just coaching for those events, but it's saying, you bet, raise their hand and say, I'll host a group of students for an afternoon or what have you. But that's what we mean by community support.
Yeah.
And that's just invaluable.
I think about the other communities we're talking to in greater Nebraska. They've got that. And most do.
Yeah.
And some of these initials will be super small. It'll be 20 kids. It'll be a couple Saturdays at the chamber. That's awesome. That's where, and in Mexico City, 35,000 kids, it has the ability, the common denominator language. And obviously the Gallup guy is going to say it's about talent and giving an intentionality to the talent conversation. But that's about the only constant that I see these happening. Our goal in Nebraska is 20 cities and kind of making it a thing. Our goal is to have week-long boot camps in a lot of communities. There's only one CliftonStrengths Institute, that's in Lincoln, but there could be competing week-long where they're recruiting the builders out of different cities. God, that'd be exciting.
Yeah, and imagine all
cities.
And the winners of the competitions from those cities all gather in Lincoln at the only Strengths Institute of its kind in the world. And that's why it's important. I mean, I just I think that's really cool.
Okay, we're getting a few questions. We're down to about 3 or 4 minutes, so time flew by. I knew it would.
Wow.
Rich is available 24/7. I'll give out his cell phone and social security number if you'd like to follow up with him or use his credit card or whatever. He's that open. And I've taken him up on that. We've had other cities from around the Midwest come in. We welcome them with open arms. Every city wants to have the best initiative, but if they can all draw upon, this is a real tide rises kind of initiative. Jim Collison, this is your show, and we totally shut you out. What do you got?
That's all right. We'll do these quick. When we think about, Andrew's asking a question about when we think about these events and what we're doing. I heard you guys. There's some patterns in there, but is that open for whatever folks want to do? Do we have some events that we can prescribe? In other words, if you're bringing them in, can just quickly talk a little bit about that.
If you could show our blueprint, Rich, or Jim, I'm happy to email this to anybody who wants, or Jim can send it out to the group. We have kind of a 3 to 4 page, what we're calling blueprint, but these are kind of recommendations on things that we know have worked. And quite honestly, they're exercises and activities out of the book. That's page 1. If you scan down, page 2 gets into the agenda, even down to hours and what we do. That's what we've been doing in Omaha and Lincoln, and we know it works, but obviously very different programming in Mexico City. It's a great question.
And Todd, there's some leeway, right, on that. It's kind of like you don't have to follow this. You can do what you're currently doing, or come up with something new, share it back with the community. Can I post this to the BP10 group on Facebook? Okay. Please so we'll put that. I'll do that here as soon as the show is over. We'll post it to the Facebook group.
Jim, the other thing that I'll ask you to do, if you would, is to so people can kind of get an appreciation for what this looks like, sounds like. We put together just a 2.5 minute video that summarized everything, and I'd be happy. We'll make sure you have that link, and if you could share that as well. And then to Todd's point earlier, yes, feel free to reach out to me, and we can have more conversations after the.
Yeah, I'll throw the document and the link to the video out there as well. It's also available in the Eventbrite invite that we put out, and it's available in the description of the YouTube video you're watching right now. So if you want to head out there, it's down there and available on the live show. Did we do strengths, Todd, along with this? Did Todd get top 5 or just BP10?
Great question. And in the interest of the short amount of time we had, we kept it focused to BP10. Obviously, strengths is foundational to this whole movement. We've thought about that being additive as we've thought about future planning. But in a limited amount of time. Now, when you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, or in Omaha, or in Midwest, half the kids took their strengths finder in school, or their parents have it, whatever. So there's kind of a permanent a saturation to begin with. But no, we did not have CliftonStrengths specific in the programming. It was predominantly BP10.
Rich, any advice you'd give for folks addressing the chamber? That's often sometimes a hard sell in there. Any advice that you give? That was Jeff's question.
Yeah, I'd put him in touch with our chamber. Our chamber is an investor in this, and I'm literally, and I would say, have them contact me, and I can put them in touch with them, and they can say, so it doesn't come across as a sales pitch from Rich. Here's why we invested.
Yeah, Omaha do the same.
Yeah, and so what I would tell them in every chamber in the country, and probably in the world, the number one challenge is workforce. I don't care what it is. It's no longer recruiting the next IBM to your city. These big, huge things where there's only one winner and there's 20 losers. It is the next economy is built. Yeah, it is. The next economy is built on the backs of entrepreneurs. It is people that are building, and that if you look at Mr. Clifton's books, and I sound like an agent for Gallup here, but I mean, if you read his books, the Coming Jobs War, Born to Build, he's very, 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 very direct on that. And I believe that chambers understand that. Those that are forward thinking.
Yeah,
so they want to invest in creating talent pipelines for their cities, but also they want to be seen as somebody who is trying to solve this problem a little bit differently than just going on site visits and
well, retrofitting a building or giving a 50-year tax incentive to a company that may create 30 jobs. I mean, in the spirit of the economic development, I love economic developers. Some of my very best friends are, but this is a little disruptive. But budgetarily, I mean, you'll spend millions on the hopes that a company can use a retrofitted building, and you'll spend 30 or 40,000 on this. I mean, it's a joke.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not an economic developer person, and so with all due respect,
Holiday Inn, so
right,
it qualifies
but
you.
with all due respect, and I mean, this is not the panacea. So what we're talking about with Future Builders does not solve all the problems. It is another tool to be used. They will continue to build and pursue bigger projects as they should. But I think what our chamber loved about this is that this is a way to dip the toe in the water to try and also add another potential solution to helping to create more economy for our economy. And I think presented that way, it really makes a lot of sense. And they've been absolutely terrific partners and supporters.
Yeah, Omaha Chamber the same. All the chambers really. Grand Island's been a great partner.
Yeah,
the great ones get it, and I'm always tough on acquired economic growth because it's an easy target, but it's cost competitive, and the bigger city's always going to win, and maybe not always the best. We just saw what happened with Amazon in New York. It's a quiver in the economic. I've lost this analogy. We can edit that whole thing out.
No, we're going to leave it in.
I'm going to need to thank our guest. Is that the time of the show?
Before you do that, Rich, if folks wanted to get in contact with you, we've got some information, like I said, in the show notes, in the YouTube video, those things.
Right.
But, so we hear you say it. What's the best way? If someone had some questions for you, want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I think the best way would be for them to email me first. And then if we need to have a conversation, whether it's on the phone or otherwise, we can certainly do that as well. But that would be Rich, RICH.Claussen, CLAUSSEN at prosperlincoln.org.
Perfect. Todd, now cue you. Thank our guest.
Well, and you all have only had the benefit of spending an hour with Rich. I've had the benefit of spending the last 2.5 years, and you can see where his belief, you can hear a lot of his CliftonStrengths talents come through, his passion. It's been an absolute pleasure. His career's changing just a little bit, but it won't ever change his relationship with Gallup and with myself and with this initiative. And thank you for spending this time with us. Thanks for leading this charge. This, one would call it our first olive out of the jar. Always the toughest, but worthwhile. We've got kids that are starting companies that are producing revenue out of Omaha cohort, Lincoln cohort. That's exciting. We don't know about all of it, which is also kind of exciting because someday we're going to say, wow, I got my blast of confidence. I heard somebody describe this as you guys are just putting confidence in a bottle and blasting it into a bunch of great kids. So you're awesome. Thanks a ton.
Thank you. This was an honor.
I could get weepy if I went on, but we changed some lives, and boy, if there's nothing more noble than that on all of our journeys, game on. I will thank you again. And to our coaches, you are our livelihood. You all know that now, Rich, you all know that myself, Sangeeta, anybody on our team, Jim Collison, is pretty hard to schedule. He's a busy man, but otherwise we're all just available 24/7 to help you if you want to try to lever one of these up or adapt it. Game on. And this was fun. Thanks, Mr. Lincoln.
Thank you, Todd.
Well, with that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center for you. Just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. Just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, if you want to join that Facebook group I was talking about around Build a Profile 10, head out to facebook.com/groups/GallupBP10. I know it's long. I'll repeat it one more time. Facebook.com/groups/GallupBP10, all one word. If you're interested in any of the training or anything we offer around BP10, it's available off our courses page, courses.gallup.com. Todd, how do you announce? I had somebody ask me the other day, are we going to do outside of the summit, which is coming up here June 3rd, 4th, and 5th of 2019? We're offering some BP10 courses at the summit. Outside of the summit, are we offering anything around BP10 later in the year?
Interestingly, predominantly global, where if you're in London or India or Australia, we're having courses popping up all over the world. Just was talking to somebody about some Spanish courses becoming available. We'll have Q3, Q4, similar to last year. We kind of ramp up, and we do have the course before and after the summit. And those are always amazing because A, they sell out, and B, you have coaches from all over the world. So you have this beautiful global, perspective come around this topic because it's an issue everywhere. So we don't load up courses Q1, Q2. We save our powder, keep it dry for the summit, and we'll have an Omaha and a DC inevitably. And again, we're starting to pop them up around the world, which is exciting.
So if you're listening to this just before the summit or after the summit, check courses.gallup.com. We'll be loading.
And there's a breakout session at the summit where our course leaders of BP10 will do a good solid 2-3 hour breakout, which will be great. Jacqueline and Rod, many of the folks know those two.
Awesome.
And I will be color commentating from the back as security's trying to drag me out because it's not my agenda, but I can't help it.
Todd can't. If you know that, he has to be there in the conversation. We want to thank you for joining us today. I look forward to the next Call to Coach. If you join us live, thanks for joining us. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.